So far, the visibility of AsiaTEFL has only been through its annual conferences and through its publications in the Journal of AsiaTEFL and through the AsiaTEFL book series. This webinar series will provide greater visibility all the year round to AsiaTEFL.
AsiaTEFL webinar series is a realization of aspiration to meeting together for academic development and promoting friendship despite this pandemic. Professor Kanakumaran Subramaniam has initiated this project and he has put lots of efforts on this. His devotion should be appreciated. I hope that everyone participating in webinar series will get engaged and further stimulated in each webinar.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the participants from around the world. My name is Savika, and I'll be the moderator throughout the session. สวัสดีค่ะ Well, as you know, AsiaTEFL has been organizing the webinar in every other month, and I'm happy to tell you that this webinar today is already the third one in the year 20 and 22. And it goes by the theme, Material Design and Development in ELT, Empowering New Initiative. And here are just a few housekeeping notes before we get started. For those who haven't registered, you can do it now by scanning the QR code displayed on the screen. Or you can click the link provided to you in the chat box. And because today's session is being recorded for post-viewing, we would like to ask for your permission in this matter. Thank you in advance. And during the webinar, if you have any question for the speakers, you can write us your question via the Mentimeter. Just simply scan this QR code. This QR code will link you to the platform. Or you can use the chat feature in the Zoom webinar as well to write your questions to the speakers. Each speaker will have 20 minutes to deliver their presentation. After the presentation, there will be a Q&A session. We will hold questions until then, and I will read the questions to the speakers to answer. The Q&A session would take around 10 to 15 minutes. And after the webinar, you will be issued a certificate. Please stay tuned and wait until the end of the webinar. And that's all for the housekeeping notes. Thank you. All right. Now let me introduce the first speaker. Dr. H.C. Aslam Khan. Dr. Aslam Khan is a multilingual educationist. He has vast experience in planning, implementing, coordinating, and managing national and international teacher education and professional training programs. He also conducts consultation and advisory work for governmental and corporate organizations both at national and international level. He served the Ministry of Education Malaysia for 39 years before his retirement. Currently, Dr. Aslam Khan is the Academic Director and Executive Vice Chairman of American Education Group Malaysia. He is a council member of National Association of Private Education Institution in Malaysia. the Vice President of Malaysian Association for Education, and also a committee member of AsiaTEFL Professional Network. His presentation today will focus on the pedagogical aspect of material design and development to ensure that ELT teachers will be able to use the materials effectively in the classroom. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. H.C. Aslam Khan.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Savika, the moderator for today's session. And a very good afternoon from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Yeah, very good afternoon, and to everyone who is present here today, wherever you are. I can see lots of familiar faces and also names, and a big or huge thank you to AsiaTEFL for the invitation. Yeah, especially Professor Pragasit Sitikul. He, the Vice President of AsiaTEFL, and also the chair of this AsiaTEFL Professional Network, and of course to the committee members, who have been working very hard to organize this, and everyone who is present here, right from the main committee in AsiaTEFL, and also everyone from all over the world. Again, thank you very much. And yes, I'm given 20 minutes. Let me share with you my PowerPoint. Yeah, I'm looking at a material design and development, empowering new initiatives from a pedagogical perspective. So the next slide, you see what I have for you. Yeah, the next slide, please, Kitty Chai. Okay, a little revisiting of some of these underlying educational theories and concepts, some conventional forms and current trends in initiatives, and how we utilize or apply all these instructional materials, and some take-home points for all of us. Yeah, the next slide, you can see, a quick one, to summarize what teaching learning materials are all about. If you see the keywords there, the keywords are concretizing a learning experience so as to make learning more exciting, interesting, and interactive. All right, so these are the keywords, okay? And you can find this, summarized in the next slide. Yeah, next please, yeah. Yeah, we can get this very clearly mentioned here. Material in language teaching and learning refers to everything used to help teaching language learners, to facilitate teachers and learners in language learning. Yeah, so these are the keywords. So the next slide, please. So what materials, teaching learning materials should do? So we can see the points here. Arouse the learner's interest, remind them of real learning, tell them what they will be learning next, and so on. You can read from the screen. Yeah, there are 11 here. So these are what materials should do in teaching and learning. The next slide, please. And types of instructional materials, I think all of us should know. Print, audio, visual, and electronic interactive. So these are types of instructional materials. Okay. Next, please. Now, let's look at the contextualized initiatives, the designs and developments, and the end products. Yeah, we see the first one. Yeah, next, please. Now, this is a cartoon, a piece of cartoon strip. Yeah, it's a very commonly used. I used this about 20 years ago in teacher training, and I think it's still applicable now. If you look at that, if you look at how we can exploit this piece of cartoon strip, in writing tasks. I think many out there who are watching this, viewing this screen, I think you may have seen this somewhere and you may have used it. Yeah. So next, please. And look at this. We're comparing two reading materials. Yeah. Two sets of reading materials. Now you can see quite a conventional one on the left and quite a current one. Yeah. Using infographics. Okay. And these are some of the initiatives that are found in teaching and learning. Next, we move on. Okay, these are publications. Now, you have to look at it whether these materials are authentic or they're artificial. Yeah, artificial and authentic materials, I mean, they are different. Yeah, okay, next, please. Okay, you find this in the market or anywhere. You may have used them. Yeah, these are all very useful materials. Okay, and some which are very current. Yeah, in the next slide. Now, sometimes you find this on social medias or other media forms. You know, sometimes you get media influencers coming up with lots of teaching and learning materials. I think we are quite familiar with this, yeah? All right, so now we know the materials. We know some of the underlying or fundamental principles in utilizing or using these materials. So how do we look at it from the pedagogical perspective? Yeah, okay, let's go to the next slide. Now we need to understand applications and utilizations of design and development materials. These are the pertinent questions. What should I use? When should I use? And how should I use? What factors must I take into great consideration in using these materials, whether they are conventional materials or whether they are current? Yeah? Okay, let's see. Now I'm going to take you into the model of instructional designs. Yeah, okay, let's look at the next one. Okay, this is these are some suggestions and recommendations. Now I'm using the next slide first. We see I'm using this suggested methodology using the acronym ASLAM. Yeah, ASLAM is my name. So look at this. Yeah, now if you look at activate, share, learn, apply, and move. Now, this is the model in teaching and learning. Now, if we are looking at all the materials that we have seen just now, we have viewed just now, and where can we apply these materials? Where can we apply? Yeah, where can we apply these materials? In the first stage, the activate, or the second stage, share, or the third stage, learn, or the fourth stage, apply, or the final stage, move. Where do we use or utilize these materials? All right. Now, I leave it to all of you. Yeah, I leave it to all of you to look at it. Where will you want to apply those materials that you have viewed just now? So if you have used or utilized those materials, then we see this in the next slide. Now, this is a suggested model for reviewing and evaluation of the materials used in the classroom practices. Yeah, for example, I'm giving a topic here. Literature, yeah? Appreciation of poetry. There's Such Quiet Eyes by Bipsy Sonharjo, a very well-known poet from Indonesia. Now you see the stages just now: activate, share, learn, apply, and move. Now, what kind of materials have been used, and the implication, the strengths, the weaknesses, and then what kind of suggestions and recommendations that we can provide. and maybe some general remarks and comments. So this is a template, a suggested template. Yeah, is kind of designed by me. So it will assist us, all right? Assist all practitioners in using the materials. Okay, so if you look at it from just now, you have seen those, viewed those materials, and you know when to apply it in the stages of a lesson, and then you review and evaluate the use of those materials. Okay, all right, so let's move to the next slide. Now, the conclusion and some take-home points. Now, I use the word realism versus idealism because we need to, there are many idealistic, pedagogical approaches or using materials. But then again, we also need to understand the realistic part of it, because our students are from all levels. They are, at every region in this world, and also sometimes students in the urban area, in the rural area, very remote area. So we need to understand, how do we contextualize these materials? Because at the end of the day, what is important? Whatever materials that we have used, it must adhere to the next slide. Okay. Now, criteria for determining the quality of instructional materials. Okay, if you want to use these materials, and if you want these materials to be successfully used, effectively used, then we have to look at this. Are these materials, in terms of, accuracy and visual appeal, in terms of ease of use and support, alignment to standards, depth of knowledge, engagement, ability to meet students' needs, take into consideration individual needs and learning styles. Make sure the materials support learning objectives. So whatever materials that we are using, all right, it has to adhere to these criteria. Then it will be seen as a successful use of the materials. Okay, so the next slide. Okay, it also, all the materials designed or developed have to adhere to the principles. All right, so look at the principles here. There are 5 principles here. Okay, 5 principles. Materials should achieve impacts, help learners to feel at ease and develop confidence. What is being taught should be perceived by learners as relevant and useful. So that's a question for you to reflect upon. All right, and 3 more principles that we have to adhere to. Okay, so the next slide. Now, material developers might write books, tell stories, bring advertisement into the classroom, express an opinion, provide samples of language used, or read a poem aloud. Whatever they do to provide input, they do so ideally in principled ways related to what they know about how languages can be effectively learned. We should focus on 3 vital questions. What should be provided for the learners? How it should be provided? What can be done with it to promote language learning? So it's very crucial. All right. And I have summarized everything in the next slide. So this is what I've summarized. A pertinent point to note and ponder. Contextualize and justify your selection of all the mentioned materials based on based on your learner's language competence, without a doubt. Maturity, learning styles, cultural setting, syllabus and curriculum requirements, availability of resources, and other pertinent factors which, to your knowledge, will impact learning and teaching. Being the practitioner, now all of us are practitioners, you know best of the content and the pedagogical needs of your learners. We just cannot subscribe to or advocate one hat fits all, and therefore nothing is cast in stone but written in sand. The empowerment of any initiative lies in your hands. So with that, in the next slide, thank you very much, because I know my time is very limited. It's just 20 minutes. And, I really appreciate any questions that will be, provided later. So thank you very much.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Aslam Khan, for the excellent presentation. Well, it gives us a better understanding of what underlines the material design and development. Because, as a teacher, I think we are alike in this matter. I mean, in the sense that we spend considerable time finding, selecting, evaluating, adapting, and creating materials to use in our classroom, in our teaching. And even though the process of teacher-produced materials is anything but laborious, I'm sorry to say that, but I do agree with you that the key advantage of doing so is contextualization. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Aslam, for your insightful presentation. And I'm sorry that I wish we had more time, but thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right, let's move to the next speaker, Dr. Masaki Oda. Dr. Masaki Oda is a professor of applied linguistics at Tamagawa University in Tokyo, Japan. At his university, he performs several different roles, including Executive Director of Higher Education and the Dean of the College of Humanities. His academic interests include socio-political aspects of language teaching and language program management. He is currently Vice President for membership of AsiaTEFL and the President of the Japan Association of College English Teachers. His talk today will focus on the politics of proper materials. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Oda. Good afternoon, Doctor.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and very good afternoon to you. I would just enjoy listening to Aslam's talk, and I think Aslam has already said some of the part of my conclusion, so I think I can save some time. But it is always, I always enjoy talking with people, AsiaTEFL, and this is a really one. And also, I enjoy watching, how passionate Aslam is to talk when he talks about teaching and material, and then I really admire what he has done. But anyway, I'll be as I was introduced, and my favorite topic is kind of socio-political aspect of language teaching. So I'm trying to actually connect it to the language teaching materials. And as you know, this is a really basic introduction to contextualize it. When you remember when you first learned English, for example, at school setting, and I think you just, there was a teacher, and you perhaps you had a material, and these are the very limited kind of window, so through which you have to look at the world like this. And so learners build the world. It's formulated based on this kind of accumulation of this knowledge, information through the materials. So, whether you agree or not, and I think this is what is happening. So now in the English language teaching profession, including like AsiaTEFL conferences or like a JASET and Thai TESOL, etc., and everybody was talking about materials, and then there are issues in the what is a good material, or what is the politically correct material, and also talking about authenticity, etc. And sometimes like a good material is the authentic material or something. And there is very straightforward, this kind of discussions going on. And also some publishers selling the materials. Oh, this is authentic English language material. And this is really authentic. But what does it mean by authentic? And that is my point today. So I think especially in the Asian context, and there has been a lot of studies, especially after maybe 2000, some critical aspect, and then this is related to what Assam said about the contextualization. So which means we have used the material from like US, Europe, etc. And maybe there are some publishers are aware that the materials developed for English as a second language context is and supposed to be different from the English as a foreign language context. But even that, I remember that while using a material which had the international edition and US edition. And so we picked up the international edition for the same material published by the major publishing house. And there was actually the chapter 3. I try not to specify which publisher it is, but the major publisher. I encountered with a lesson with, this is chapter 3 of the low intermediate book with maybe 30, 40 different kind of dogs. And there was a vocabulary, unless you are interested in dogs or maybe Pomeranian, and then I think you don't need, this as a general academic purpose. And then also I learned a lot about dogs, and the Yorkshire Terrier is different from Lancashire Terrier, something like that. And the next page, my American colleague really complained. There was a traffic report on the Bristol and Cardiff area, something, there's bumper-to-bumper traffic on M4 or something like that. And what does M4 mean? Even American colleagues do not know what M4 is. And the I-95, or this M4 is I-95 or something like that. So that kind of things. Of course, you cannot make everybody happy. But one thing is, as far as the Japanese ELT is concerned, there was a period that we uncritically accept these materials developed in North America or Europe without any review and criticism. Okay, this is authentic material. That is a legitimate reason. And this is what you're supposed to do. So textbook, it goes to the audiovisual materials. I don't want to go into the detail. So, but who decides politically correct? So question 1. This was very interesting. In the 1990s, and whenever I attend a TESOL convention, presenters, especially material writers, I don't want to talk about the politics. I don't mean to be too political, even the AsiaTEFL conference like that. I usually say, my talk is about the politics. Well, academics are reluctant to talk, or maybe try to avoid political issues and try to make it very harmonious something so that the rest of friendly. But it doesn't make any, everything is political. So do you think the ELT material should be politically neutral? I'm talking about the language itself. Language should be neutral, or the content itself. It's totally, my answer is totally depend on how you deal with that materials. Okay, now politically neutral. This is like a Handoyo Widodo and his company in a recent publication talking about language is not ideologically neutral, and therefore language teaching is not value-free. I think I agree with it. But I think the ELT professionals are, until recently, are not really talking about this. The replacement of the term foreign language learning with foreign language education manifests that language teaching has social and political purposes embodied more or less in the aims, objective, and teaching and learning materials. And if you talk about Japanese examples, and you have the government, the national guideline of which the schools has to follow. And government saying, well, this is really non-political something, but government meaning you are imposing, you are teaching a language based on the national agenda. And this is natural. And students around the world are not only obliged to, this is a little bit old, reach a high level of competence in English to pursue their studies, but they are also dependent on the forms of Western knowledge that are limited value and of extreme inappropriacy to the local context. And that's related to what Asam was talking about. And this is the Aristophanes has already talked about in his book in 1994, The Culture Politics of English as an International Language. So the question 2, now, authenticity. The word authenticity is often used in a teacher training and even use authentic materials. This is authentic language, but what is authenticity? Is authentic material something good? Okay, now there are a lot of different of authenticity. Actually, I skipped 2 slides for the sake of time, but there was I think it was I saw that somebody wrote, and there was like maybe 20 different authenticity, and there was that. So like authenticity in terms of the language use, authenticity in terms of context, but and often, very often, I think when I was a novice teacher and I got a teacher training workshop in the professional organization, okay, look, this is authenticity, and you got this kind of advertisement from the American supermarket, something, and you have winter sale, and you have this kind of the different kind of things, and this is authentic, legitimated as it is authentic because they are the things that so-called native speakers in English-speaking countries are using it. But how relevant it is, if you are just presenting this, doing this pair activity or role play, something like that, and you have an exam, for example, say like, at the time, I remember it was 20 years ago, so fortunately, at that time, Japan didn't have a sales GST, but now we have the high GST now. So, but was it necessary to explain that GST of the state of California and to the first year high school students, something like that, and that kind of things. So authenticity, Lowe and Pinner, they wrote a very interesting. This is a very interesting article in 2016. Authenticity is something which has both social and contextual dimensions and is therefore dynamic in terms of space, time, unique to each individual, and as such, rather difficult to define. That's why you have hundreds of definitions, but still people are talking about authenticity to legitimate the political correctness of material. And I don't know what is happening here on the screen. In foreign language learning, the term authenticity often carries either implicit direct reference to the cultures to which target language is used, as I said in my example, or the first language which is generally graduate toward the native speakers. So there's a kind of confusion. Now, the things that native speakers are using are authentic. So I don't know what is the red lines here. I don't know what it is. But authentic materials. And authentic materials, how it is different from the reality. And it's authentic, something that you define and very static, and then it hasn't changed. Actually, this is, well, I have to, because I'm the executive director of my university and also the founding director of Center for English as a Lingua Franca at Tamagawa University. And my job is to promote my university a little bit. But so this is political in a way. We have a Center for English as a Lingua Franca, and when we established this center in 2014, and I asked Henry Whitson to think about something to put on his wall, and then there was a Henry Whitson's article in 1994 titled "The Ownership of English." So I'll give you a link in the chat later, but and he, without hesitation, selected this part from his own article. Real proficiency is when you are able to take possessions of the language, turn it to your advantage, and make it real for you. So if you are presenting this supermarket advertisement, something, flyer, or Christmas sale, something like that, that kind of thing, it doesn't mean anything for those who doesn't celebrate Christmas, for example. So you have to be, the good material is something real to the students. Although, again, it is easy to say but difficult to do, but there are certainly something that teachers can do. This is what I said in relation to Aslam's presentation. First, I've been in this profession for nearly 30 years, and things have been changed. And also, so you really have to constantly reflect on it. So constant reflection. Now, this is for the learner's side. Their needs has to be reflected, and also as a teacher, or maybe program teachers, has to think about, okay, what is the best approach to that? Again, this relates to what Asam said. In order to do that, I remember that students had very, very limited information, and so the teachers, especially at the beginning level, has to tell them, this is one example, and they make student able to reflect constantly throughout his or her life to find out what's the best, most appropriate. I mean, student also has to contextualize and recontextualize the learning to themselves. So that is the exposure to the various options. No, teacher can help, but student also need to learn how to get various information, how to sort it out. This is the way that if everybody is doing it, teachers, material writers, students, and do it, and we just provide the environment. So by conclusion is constant reflection and the constant contextualization and recontextualization. It is not important whether that material is authentic or not, but what is authentic for their language use and their language learning. And this is a very dynamic process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for your insightful presentation. Well, it makes us become better informed of a dynamic relationship between ELT materials and social context, because so far the term authenticity has remained ambiguous to most teachers, right? When it becomes the material design and development, the question arises whether it is possible for us to separate a language from its cultural associations. What should we teach to our students? The students' own culture, the target culture, or a wide variety of cultures? Because we do realize that English is a lingua franca, but is English a cultural franca? We don't know that, right? But one thing we surely learned from your presentation is that we as a teachers should take into account the contextualization of the materials, because after all, the bottom line is that we should teach what is real to our students, what they will have to encounter in their real life. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And if you have questions for Dr. Oda and Dr. Aslam Khan, please, you can scan the QR code or the link provided in the chat box and send us your questions. Thank you so much. Here is the way you can ask our speakers your question. All right, and now we come the final speaker, Dr. Aurelio Wilba. Dr. Wilba is a professor of the College of Social Science at the University of the Philippines, Cebu. He has conducted several volunteer teacher training programs in the Philippines. He received international award from TESOL USA for his research on courseware development for sustainable development. His talk today features e-service learning to coach public school teachers on remedial materials development during the pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll give you Dr. Aurelio Vilba.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I am Aurelio Vilbar. I'm from the Philippines. And thank you very much, Dr. Pagasit and AsiaTEFL. First, I'm from Cebu, Philippines, and I live in an island. And hopefully you can visit my place now. Question number 1. I am a high school teacher. Can you please go to the chat box and tell me what is your answer? Which BTS member speaks English? A. Jin. B. Jungkook. C. RM. D. Jinmin. Please go to the chat box. Oh, we have a winner. Okay. So the answer, oh, wow. Keep coming. Thank you very much. The answer is RM. I think everybody knows RM. And I teach in a high school and they said, yes, sir, we know RM because he lived in New Zealand and he watched Friends, according to most articles. So this is an example of a material that is very commonly understood by my high school students in the Philippines. Now, here's another question. This is found on the internet, and it says here, he lives in London, but often goes over, along, down to Paris on business. She lives in Scotland, but often go over, along, down to London on business. This is a free grammar exercise found on the internet. When I asked my students the answer, they said, I know lovers in Paris, but I don't know where Scotland. And they just said, just guess it. Filipinos know lovers in Paris because of a Korean series at that time. So which means maybe the idea of over, along, down, these prepositions can be very problematic to my Filipino students. Therefore, like this, in the Philippines, in Cebu, we have many call centers, and sometimes they're offering help for Americans, sometimes British. We really have a problem with, is it fill up the form, fill in the form, fill out the form? In the Philippines, we say, fill up the form, and that is our Philippine English, and according to, we have variations. In my place in Cebu, we say, fill upi ang form, which means it comes from fill up or fill in, but nevertheless, it is our own version of English. So now, this means I am using Byram's intercultural communicative competence whenever I do my materials for my students, whether high school and graduate students. And Byram said that instead of telling us which one is correct, there's no more correctness. It's ability to understand many variations of Englishes. I'm speaking of Filipino English, and Savika also speaks her own Thai English, maybe. So here's my solution. I wanted to create a software, and this software will teach English, but will never forget the heritage of my country. In addition to this, I want to try something related to the curriculum in the Philippines. Ladies and gentlemen, in the Philippines, we are required to study King Chulalongkorn, the Malaysian legend of Langkawi Island. We have to study Korean poetry and Afro-Asian literature. These are parts of the mandates for us to learn English. So we learn English through Asian literature and Asian drama. So in this type of material, I wanted to create a software specifically for English. I call it a courseware. And that courseware is something localized that's promoting intercultural communicative competence and most of all, sustainable development. So what I did is we focus on the following themes: poverty alleviation, gender equality, environment, and cultural diversity. I had this research with my graduate students. They're teaching English in a high school and university. I told them we're doing a research in which we're making a material, and this material is software that can really entice students to learn more about our culture and the ASEAN culture as well. And all of my 17 teachers who are my students in the graduate school program said yes. And I'm using the framework here of teachers as collaborators. According to research, the best materials developers are the teachers themselves. They're the one who know what's the real thing in the classroom. And in doing this courseware, I used the ADDI instructional design model. First, we had an analysis. In the analysis stage, I told my graduate students that we're making a material for grade 8 students. Why grade 8 students? Because in the curriculum, they're required to learn Asian literature. They should know about King Mongkut, King Chulalongkorn from Thailand. They also have to learn about Amaterasu, haiku from Japan, tanka, and also other forms of literature. So, which means learning English was through learning culture and literature. In the design stage, we wanted to make it more like comparative so they can see other forms of Englishes. It underwent development, pilot testing, and evaluation. Now, this was the software we created. Design, we want to make it interactive. Like after they click on the answer, they will give a feedback. And we had a theme-based language instruction. Now in the theme, it's focused on the United Nations Sustainable Development. Here's a very funny thing. I'm 47 years old. And when we wrote about gender equality, my title was Gender Equality. And when we had pilot testing, the girls said, it sounds more of a social studies rather than an English software. So I asked them, what's your suggestion? I was thinking of girl power. Then they said, that's so 2000. It's so Spice Girls. So, oh, really? So they said, how do you want to change the title of the software? They said, what about Asian girl power? So the naming of the topic is based from the students' opinion and interests. So they have world peace, maybe because they watched a movie of Miss Congeniality and world peace was so famous then. Now development, it also underwent pilot testing. There were experts who checked the materials, and then afterwards, it underwent testing. Finally, the software is done, and these are the title. Happy Fiesta. This is about cultural diversity, and there's about global warming. Again, the topic here is related to education for sustainable development. My students are learning English through the context of sustainability. Here, another game. I want you to guess. This is what they call as giving predictions. From your own opinion and guess, where do you think is the country of William? It says here, William is a teenage inventor from Africa. Before watching the video, give your prediction about William and his invention. Can you please tell us, where do you think? Oh, Imelda Ghazali is correct. So we have the boy who harnessed the wind. So this is an example of a story my Filipino students should watch and appreciate because it's part of the curriculum to understand African literature. Yes, his name is William. He's from Malawi, and he was 14 years old when he invented that windmill that can help the people have some electricity. So this is part of the courseware. They have to view, and I got this, the source is from TED, and there was an interview between him. In this case, my students were exposed to another variation of English, which can be an African English for William. I also use the text of global warming, like use passive voice and active voice. Global warming is caused by the increase of gas in temperature, and students would use another form of this material. Very interesting. My students love Indian literature. They love the Ramayana, they love Mahabharata. And for them, the one of these ladies that they idolize is Savitri, and she's from India. And this woman had so many suitors, but she just said, can I choose a man, the one I love the most? And for my girls, she's somebody really to be, she was a good role model. In this story, we revise it to have more gender fair nouns. Like instead of saying every man, we say every person. Instead of saying spokesman, we say every person. So it's a combination of gender studies and language. Very interesting in the software is, teacher, what pronoun should I use for Ellen? And what about for RuPaul? Okay, so this is an example now of the discussion of the genderbread. We need to discuss the difference between sex and gender. In this case, we need to discuss about mix. No more miss. They have an option to have miss or Mr. or mix. Or sometimes they have an option to have a gender neutral pronoun like singular they. So the courseware discuss that particular variation of pronoun. And finally, we had this pilot testing, the reflections of my teachers. They said they like it because they can learn, and the materials allow the students to make decisions. It also widens their knowledge about ASEAN integration. And they said it made me open more about gender fair pronouns. What about the kids? Oh, the kids said, I'm intrigued by the singular they. When can I use they? What if my teacher will not allow they? And this is part of the evolution of language. And they said, oh, we were able to learn many cultures. And one student said, I learned about the different roles of women from different countries. And Asians speak different Englishes, and we should not judge them. They are unique. I'm so happy to tell you that the software that we created was presented to a conference and was published in a journal. So this is one example of, it feels so good to be doing materials production as a form of research as well. Finally, UNESCO project came in 2013. I had a chance to work with University Science Malaysia, Suwan Sanandat Rajabat University, and also from Mongolian State University and UP Cebu. There was a project by UNESCO, and it said we have to make intercultural understanding. So our goal was how to make a material that can be really understood by some Asians. Asians would refer here maybe to ASEAN region at that time. Now, here, this is Cebu, mango. There are more mangoes than Filipinos in my place. So how would you know if your mango is sweet or not? You don't have to smell it because there could be COVID in the mango. All you need to do is look at the eye of the mango. The bigger the eye, that means the more ripe the mango is. And that's the way to do it in my place. Don't smell, don't touch, because you would ruin the beauty of the mango. So the bigger the eye, that means the more ripe the mango is. What about for coconut? Oh, you don't have to open the coconut if you want the juice. Simply get the coconut, shake it. If you would hear a slurp sound, that means it's good for drinking. If there's no sound, that's good for shampoo. So that's an example of local indigenous knowledge system. And UNESCO defined it as it's a body of knowledge by people, by generations. Some people call it unscientific, but sometimes we believe in them. It's called LINKS for short, Local Indigenous Knowledge System. The goal of the research was we wanted to know for how many years the modern generation now have forgotten the local indigenous knowledge system, maybe because of technology. Before, when we get sick, we just get this particular herbal, drink it, and my mother would say, no more colds. And currently, the links or local indigenous knowledge system have deteriorated. The goal of UNESCO in this project is we wanted to create an ebook, and that ebook will promote intercultural understanding. And here are the cast of the characters. First is we have UP Cebu, 39 of us, and we have students from Suwan Sunanda Rajabat University, 72 of them, and majors in English. And we have Mongolia State University of Education, 11, and University Science Malaysia. The four countries collaborated and discussed what cultures do you think these children should know, and how can we use these cultures in teaching English and other languages. Now, here's a good thing. Why ebook? Well, we made this research sometime in 2013, and iPad was so new, and kids love ebook. So we thought, if we have ebook, it will be easy to share. Plus, in the Philippines, everybody has Facebook account. Easy to share, and you're presenting something really factual. So ebook for the kids will have local cultures. We use the ADDIE model to make it. Analysis, we want to say the K to 12, any grade 4, grade 5, or grade 6 can use this. In the design, we want to make it beautiful, elaborate, and something that can represent the cultures of Asian. Here's the problem. When we started the research, we had an earthquake. Bang. That was 2013, and the only way to contact was through Skype. There was no Google Drive in 2013. So UNESCO called us up and they said, do you want to continue with the research? Well, I was the principal at that time, and I said, maybe not. But suddenly, there's something strange happened in our place. There were so many black ants. I don't know how you call it in your country, but black ants. Those black ants, according to the old people, when you see lots of black ants in your place, there could be shaking of the earth. Aha! So that became our findings. So we said, let's go with this project. In October, we said yes. After 2 months, bang, we had another typhoon. So it's called Typhoon Rai. Can you imagine doing this research? So many calamities happened. As a result, we were thinking, what are some indigenous knowledge system about this particular thing? But we continued. Who helped us? Suwan Sunanda Rajabat University lent us their wonderful telecollaboration platform. So they hosted us, and we had a chance to communicate with each other. This was in 2013, ladies and gentlemen. We only have Skype or 3 people in FB Messenger. And here is now the ebook. Answer the question. Which of these countries practice these links? If you're pregnant, eat banana blossom soup to have much breast milk. A, Malaysia. B, Mongolia. C, Philippines. D, Thailand. What is your answer? Oh, we have a winner. It's Sari. It's Thailand. Wow, she must be from Thailand. Yes, according to the research now, he said, in Malaysia, it's soup, vegetables produces more breast milk. In the Philippines, it's fruits and vegetables. But something really very interesting about Mongolia, it's very specific. They said eating soup, boiled sheep bone, and milk tea with millet. In Thailand, banana blossom soup. So this is an area in which kids can learn about jurons, eating soup, eating banana blossom soup. So using the context and teaching jurons. And very nice. Look at the children. They have very nice ebook that they did. And this is how beautiful we met. Example, we have teacher, she's the dean. Dean Rose said, oh, we use supernatural stories so children would go out at night. According to people in Thailand, they will say ghost stories and children will not go out in the evening. The same thing around all these 4 countries. And suddenly, my high school kids, they were 15-year-old that time. Whenever this guy from Thailand would speak, some girls from Malaysia get a piece of paper and said, hi, handsome. And my girls were so shocked to see, huh? How come Malaysian girls are putting hi, handsome? Sometimes this is an area for teaching stereotypes. Maybe they thought that if you are from Malaysia, you're automatically a Muslim, but they saw, oh, there are many cultures, there are many genders there in Malaysia. And it's very interesting to know that there are Chinese, there are Indian, there are also Malay. Okay, and now, who among you have asthma? If you have asthma, these are the solutions. Among Chinese Malaysians, they eat newly born rats to cure asthma. Okay, in Thailand, we chop some insects and let the asthmatic eat it. In the Philippines, it's a flying lizard. So we have this flying lizard. In Mongolia, we powder some insects. Can you imagine kids, like me, I have to look for this flying dragon and then we eat that, not raw, of course. And then it can cure asthma. And there are studies, scientific studies to prove that it has this certain toxin good for anti-asthma. And this is the ebook. So many links about pregnancy. If you're pregnant, do not eat too much pineapples. Philippines, it can cause miscarriage. In Mongolia, the white mushroom. Again, this is an area to learn gerunds, eating large amounts, eating too much pineapples. Singing in the house. It said here, Malaysia, do not sing in the kitchen, otherwise you will marry an old person or a widower. In the Philippines, do not sing in the kitchen or else you will not get married. Wow. Okay. In Mongolia, do not whistle in the house. It will give you bad luck. In Thailand, do not sing in the kitchen. Otherwise, you will marry an old person. They're so racist, right? Why? What's wrong with old person? Okay. Still, this has nothing maybe to do with scientific thing, but this has something to do with wisdom. It's sanitation. And if you sing, there could be saliva in the food. So as a result of that, very interesting thing. And we have, for Thailand, having rice remain in the dish after eating causes dark scars on your face. And there's a Thai translation. In the Philippines, don't leave food on your plate. You will have misfortune. So this is an example of a grammar. I mean, we use this text in teaching, maybe combination. We can relative pronouns. If you can combine two sentences, that would be good. And from the evaluation, the student said, we develop our listening skills because each country has different accent and pronunciation. And we had to listen to them because my students would feel bad if they would say, excuse me, I don't understand you. So what they did is when Thai people or Mongolian would speak, they take down notes, they record, and afterwards they would ask questions. For them, asking too much question might be offensive. And also, the grade 4 students and grade 7 students said they loved the materials because they learned many cultures and they learned English as well. And very happy to inform you that the paper that we did with UNESCO was published in Taylor and Francis. Thank you very much. 谢谢你，ขอบคุณครับ
ขอบคุณค่ะ Doctor. Thank you very much for walking us through your incredible research journey. Many cultural knowledge that we can learn from your presentation. And we can see that CBI is indeed a very interesting tool in developing contextualized digital materials. We learn many possibilities of how it can be used as a springboard for the lessons and assessments. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you.
And now we are approaching the Q&A session. You can put again your question in the Mentimeter, or you can just drop your question in the chat. The webinar crew is now collecting all of the questions. Please wait for a moment. Please wait for a moment. All right, I have some of the questions in my hand right now. The first question goes to Dr. Aslam. All right, Doctor, as this is your question. As a language teacher, how do we use the Aslam model to develop literacy-based learning materials?
If you look at the Aslam model, it's basically used in the classroom. All right. Now, whatever material, I mean, you look at ASLAM, those are steps, stages in a class, in the classroom, the teaching and learning stages. So whatever materials that you are using, you have to make sure that these materials are applicable and utilized according to the criteria that I mentioned earlier in these stages of the lesson. Why the template they have given, the reasoning, whatever materials you use, why are you using it, what is the strength, what is the weakness, and what you need to do to make the material better. Now, all these are basically to ensure that any type of material that you use at any point of the lesson should impact teaching and learning. So that's the quality of materials that we are looking at. If it impacts learning, if it enhances learning, then you are on the right track. So there is, like I said earlier, there is no material that is one head fits all. You have to collect it, you have to analyze it according to the learner's needs. And you can recycle. Now remember, whatever materials you have used, let's say if you're using it for reading skill, like the infographics that I mentioned just now, I've shared just now, you're using for reading skills, but you can also use it for listening, speaking, writing, vocabulary building, grammar, whatever. So you recycle it. All right, don't put it to waste. Just don't design, develop, and say, I'm going to use it only for once, and that's it. No, you can recycle it. So that's why I say the empowerment of new initiatives lies in the hand of the practitioner. As a teacher or practitioner, you know best for your learners. So choose the best for your learners. Nobody is going to say, this is right, this is wrong. Hey, why? You always have to say, I've been teaching my class for many years. I know the needs of my learners. So this will be the best for my learners in terms of culture, language proficiency, and so on. So that's the bottom line.
All right, thank you so much, Doctor. So, well, is it necessary for us to evaluate the existed material as a part of the need analysis before we develop instructional material?
I mean, is it the same question here?
Different one.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Is it to me too?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Because, yeah.
Yes. When you develop or design materials, we have to understand. Researchers have done so much in understanding the principles, the criteria, and so on. So use this, because researchers spend lots of time analyzing it. And then as a practitioner, you try to manage it. Okay, looking at certain materials, okay, yes, this is good. This is a really, instructional material that can use for my classroom based on research. And you try it, and then use the template they have given, and then make your own analysis. Your analysis is your own. It belongs to you. It is yours. You and your learners know best. That's it. Nobody outside the classroom will say, hey, Dr. Sawika, this is not right. Hey, Dr. Sawika, this is wrong. Nobody can say that, because Dr. Sawika, you know your student best. You are the practitioner of your learners. So use it. And then tell yourself, I did it.
Thank you so much. That's a very clear answer. And the next question is for Dr. Oda, right? Do you think there is a fear of potential loss of cultural identity by teaching English as a foreign language? What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I'm not saying that you should avoid cultures, but I think you have to. I mean, like other speakers, you have to when you start using that, and like for example, you have like one example there, and make student realize, okay, now you are not supposed to judge which one is good and which one's better, which one is like. But maybe ask questions on like why this is happening. Like, Arero's presentation of 4 countries, and it was very interesting. And then maybe if I would use that, and I would say, well, no, I would do something. Unfortunately, I hear like some of the teachers say, okay, now which one do you think is the best? Filipino or something like that. No. Think about, maybe you would just give an assignment, why these 2 cultures are doing this. I mean, something like that. Then discuss it, and then what happens to you and why. And then maybe if you can join to that group, and how would you present your something like that. So it's and also it goes with what Aslam says. I mean, you contextualize to your own classroom, or maybe if I borrow what Widdowson said, and I was talking about the learners, but also teachers, make it real for your classroom. So that's what I think I answered. I hope I answered the question.
Thank you so much, Doctor. And the next is the question for Dr. Wilbur. Is there any ready-to-use program to design the ebook?
Oh, yes. There are some, currently now there are lots of free software you can use, but sometimes there are limitations. So you can, for example, right in my case, I was using Author Plus. It's a company from Hong Kong. And one thing I like their company is that whenever they know you're a teacher, they can give you a discount. So it can do click and drag for exercises. It can make some video comprehension exercises, and you listen, and there's A, B, C, and D. Unfortunately, as of now, it cannot check writing. So it will have more of grammar-based A, B, C, D, and fill in the blanks.
Thank you very much, Doctor. And this is also the question for you, Dr. Wilbur.
Sure.
Is the technological gadgets considered an authentic material?
Oh, it depends on the content of the gadgets. So for example, in my case, like in the materials that we use when we develop the content for the 4 cultures from Asia, it was authentic because they came from really the sources of the country, and it was written by the people themselves. So I think it was more authentic. Now, sometimes we also like to contrive the exercises, because sometimes there are some topics that cannot be easily understood. So we try to adapt and make it easier depending on the users. And usually in the Philippines, if you say Mario Maurer, everybody loves it. So him. So that means we know some pop cultures that would work. We know all this pop culture will work. And sometimes we keep on changing it, because sometimes that person may no longer be popular, or maybe that person is not suitable for this particular generation. So it varies time to time.
All right, thank you, Doctor. With a few minutes left for the Q&A session, I think we can afford one more question, and this is for Dr. Oda. Okay, Doctor, how can we expose learners to authentic materials, yet ensuring that they are manageable for the learners, especially in terms of vocabulary load? Is there any resource that provides such materials?
I cannot think of any specific resources, but I think think about if you are talking about like the younger, like kids, and see how like they use like a YouTube or something like that, and this is the way that they encounter with English. So maybe it's a good start. And then, well, of course, now you're talking about like controlling the managing vocabulary. You cannot say, okay, these are vocabulary, but maybe I think giving assignment, if you are doing as a part of classroom assignment and given assignment, say maybe you can just pick up those vocabulary or something, you just get your own note. And it's more on the kind of teachers should help them how to study. But it's not like you are like my generation, you have a textbook and you have to remember this word list. I don't think it works, but they remember what they think are necessary, and then teacher give a feedback, reflection, and so that they can continue. So of course, it's maybe quite difficult if you have a very structured system, but there are great room for that.
Thank you for your answer, Doctor. And due to the time constraints, we have to apologize as we can afford only a handful of questions. So we're now end the Q&A session. Once again, my apologies. Before we reach another session, I have the president of AsiaTEFL with us here. Good afternoon, Professor Kirk Yong Lee. Good afternoon, Professor. Can you say
Yes,
something
good afternoon.
to the participants?
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, I'm kind of sorry that some of us could not join in the beginning of this webinar. But fortunately, we all could finally manage to join in this webinar. And first of all, I'd like to thank all three panelists today for their interesting and insightful and informative and also energetic presentations. I'd like to thank you all for your making efforts on this. Well, you know, I think AsiaTEFL webinar series is very successful and also very meaningful. I don't know whether you are aware that we have about 1,000 people registered in each webinar. That means that I think that people are very much eager to interact and learn from each other. And I think that this AsiaTEFL webinar series is following the roles in exchanging their ideas and learning from each other. I really think that the webinar team for their making efforts on this. And originally, I'd like to thank the late president, Kanakumaran Subramaniam. I don't know whether it is correct pronunciation, but I really appreciate his initiative on this project. And also I'd like to appreciate the Professor Pragasit Kols and his team's tremendous efforts on making this webinar possible. Next week, we are going to have an annual international AsiaTEFL conference. Right after the conference, the presidency is coming to an end, so that this will be the last chance for me to have a kind of interaction with you. Here in this webinar, I would like to introduce the other president, Professor Ravinder Gagesh, participating in this webinar. So I'd like to turn the mic over to him also, so that he has some chance to give a speech, because this is maybe the last chance, for us as a president. Professor Ravinder Gagesh, can you say something, please? Professor Gagesh? He is not here? I saw him.
Oh, yeah, I'm here. The only I was
Okay,
not allowed.
yeah. Would you say something?
Thank you for permitting me. Thank you for
last chance
permitting me
for
to
us.
join. Thank you, Professor Lee. I ditto what you said. Wonderful. The webinar series has been excellent right through. And hats off to Professor Pragasit. And of course, to the wisdom of Professor Gana Subramaniam, our former colleague. And today's webinar is, of course, very interesting. Of course, the presentations were not only enthusiastic, but very, very, let's say, pleasant. It was spoken in a very different mode. All three presenters made a very beautiful, beautiful speeches. They have focused on the cultural aspect, the authenticity, as well as the contextualization of materials. So unless the materials are contextualized, and of course, I agree with Aurelio Wilbar, even the local element, language element comes in, it's fine, perfectly fine. We are living in a multimodal world. And there is no unicenter now, it's multicentral. So we need this plurality of the kind of perspective of English language.
It's wonderful. We need to be comprehensible. We need to communicate with each other. That's what's required. And well, the kind of developments, the innovations that all the three speakers have talked about, they're very welcome. Very welcome. I hope some more people will work on this area and further this research. My congratulations to all the speakers, to Professor Prakasit, and for arranging this wonderful webinar series. And even today's series, this one is also a very successful one. And we look forward to more. Of course, I again reiterate what Professor Lee said. We are going to have the AsiaTEFL meeting, AsiaTEFL conference, and I hope we all join in large numbers. And probably that would be the last time that we too would be addressing everyone. It is a wonderful experience. The webinar series has been a wonderful, very illuminating experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, the President. And on behalf of AsiaTEFL Professional Network Committee, we would like to thank everyone again for your participation. Our gratitude goes to the three speakers, Professor Oda, Dr. Aslam Khan, and Dr. Vilba for your time on the weekend, especially for Dr. Vilba, because today is not only Saturday, but it's his birthday as well. Oh. So please allow me in taking this opportunity to wish you a very, very happy birthday.
Professor
And
Vilba.
thank you so much for giving
Thank
us this
you.
honor.
Birthday.
Wow.
Shall we sing? Oh. Wish you all the best, Doctor.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, everyone. I think it's time to take a group photo. If you would, please turn on your camera and give us your beautiful smile. Thank you. Well, this will take only a few minutes.
On three, everyone. We're gonna start with page one. 1, 2, 3. Next is page 2. Keep smiling. 1, 2, 3. One more, please. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Now we have come to the end of the webinar. Before we dismiss, I can see many participants asked about a certificate, right? So please hang on a bit, right? We will provide you the link to the certificate soon in the chat box, and there will be the QR code for you to scan. Well, let me inform you of the next webinar. The next webinar will be on September, right? Just be sure to check out the Facebook page and the website of AsiaTEFL so you don't miss it. More information will be coming soon. Okay, can you please go back to the QR code for the certificate? Thank you. Just scan the code here so you get your certificate. Please ensure that your information is correct before submitting the form to us. Thank you very much. And this webinar would not successfully happen without this amazing member of AsiaTEFL Professional Network Committee. So thank you all for your dedication and hard work. And special thanks to Associate Professor Dr. Prakasit Sithi Tikun, our VP, our Vice President. Thank you very much, Professor. And now we officially come to the end of the webinar. Thank you once again, everyone. We hope to see you in the next webinar in September. All the best and stay safe. Goodbye. สวัสดีค่ะ. Thank you very much.